every Tuesday night at Beale was the training night for night flying. And so I would go out in my backyard and watch the SR take off around the sunset. And I knew exactly what it was, and it still looked like a UFO to me. So, special tactics are needed to carry that high flash point fuel and find the SR-71 and refuel it while maintaining secrecy. Which again means that there's certain things that you have to do with the tanker. You have to be able to segregate fuel in it. You're going to have body tanks all along the body of that aircraft that carry the JP-7, and you'll carry your own JP-4 fuel in the wings. If you go out and look at the tanker that's out there on display, just as you turn into the museum from the main road, you look under the right wing of the aircraft where the landing gear is, you'll see a pipe about this big sticking out. That's where you hook up the JP-4 and fill it up. There's a little silver panel where you can flip the switches to have it go to the right tanks so that you don't have it set back on its tail because you have too much fuel in the backside. On the Q model, you go around to the other side and there's another place, another port for the JP-7 to go into the body tanks. So that's one of the modifications in the Q. So modified to carry the JP-7 fuel, segregates the fuel, 2 ground refueling ports, I talked about that. Other things that we had strobe lights on the wingtips. Now the new tankers have those now, but we had strobe lights that we could flip on just in case the SR really was lost and really couldn't find the tanker. We could flip on those strobe lights and help them find us. Special communications, super secret communications with KG boxes so that when we were talking to him over the radio, it was scrambled. But most of the time we would actually just fly radio silent and not even try to communicate. The radio, there was another special radio which gave him distance and azimuth location to the tanker that we could also use. We also had a boom interphone before all the other tankers had them, to where we had been doing the whole mission radio silent. Once we hooked up the boom, we could talk to him in the cockpit because there was an interphone wire going down the boom. And we could get any special instructions, or we could tell him some things we knew that he didn't. And then there was special crew training. Nobody in KC-135s was flying formation at the time, so that was special training that the Beale crews needed to get. And another thing that we got a lot of, and I credit with me being able to go on and become a colonel, is the fact that I mentioned earlier, there weren't a lot of operational missions going on. This is one of the few operational missions because strategic reconnaissance was still required. And so if you're directed by the Joint Chiefs of Staff to get your mission complete, they tell the aircraft commanders, you'll get your mission complete and you'll figure out how to do it and you won't fail. And if you have to make decisions, make them. Don't call back asking us what to do. And so you really had a lot of authority and responsibility even as a young captain. There was a time, for instance, when I was a young captain leading a formation of 135s taking off from a base that wasn't Beale. It was somewhere out in middle America. And we were supposed to hook up with the SR at a precise time. And if we didn't take off in exactly 5 minutes, our mission was going to abort and the SR mission would abort and he wouldn't get the recon he needed that he was directed to get by the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So a little bit of pressure on a young captain. But at the same time, there was a huge thunderstorm coming across the runway at the same time. So I had to play it in such a way that thunderstorm, calculate when that thunderstorm would come over and pass and still take off in time. And I was getting a lot of help from the tower, from the Colonel Wing Commander, who kept giving me regular weather updates and urging me to remember the importance of the mission. But the funny thing is, people told me later how much pressure he was putting on me. I didn't even notice it. I was looking at the thunderstorm, the weather, the timing, trying to figure out exactly when to take off so that we would have a good mission. And we had a good mission, and we didn't fly through a thunderstorm and get ourselves killed. So, now we did later fly through a thunderstorm. We were flying around the traffic pattern in Okinawa, just getting ready to land, and we had about 30,000 pounds of fuel left when we got a distress call from an SR-71 coming back to Kadena and saying that they needed some fuel so that they could work a problem with their landing gear. And so we did a missed approach, came up around, stayed in the landing pattern in Kadena, and it was kind of nasty weather. It wasn't a massive thunderstorm, but it was raining, the wind was blowing, and it was poor visibility. And he came up behind us in the traffic pattern and refueled, got the rest of our fuel. We came, turned around and landed on gauge air and got chewed out by the commander there for putting the airplane at risk. But we saved an SR.